corner, the game that never ends, except we did end it because we only went for 45 seconds. What do you think of that? What does that set up? What does that bring out?
They're stealing the balls and they're bringing the balls.
Yep.
It's activities instead of decision making.
Yep.
Watching how many balls, where is it,
Speed.
You have a target idea, a goal.
Yep.
You have your goal.
A destination.
Yeah, if somebody comes and steals
Physical
your balls,
play. The man who got fouled.
Change of direction.
You want to solve the problems, how I can shoot
Yep.
the ball, how I don't want to let them get the ball.
One or two of you, I think, try to keep a defender back at the house. Yeah, and that's okay too. If that's what they come up with, that's brilliant.
The 6.5.
Yeah. Mostly they'll just abandon the house once they've brought the soccer balls back, but that's okay too. Yeah, so play for a set time. Any guided question in there? Just let them play. Just let the activity bring it out, yeah. Yeah. And if you see something you don't like, that's the time. You know, you saying you got fouled, you know, I'm saying I didn't see it. It was fine. He was fine. He was fine. He actually got 3. And then what about get out of here? Yeah? So you see there that it's a fairly fast-paced game. We had 12 players active. A coach came up to me at the end and said, would I start it off 1 versus 1, then 2 versus 2 before going to 3 versus 3? Well, a lot's going to depend on the amount of players I've got, but I certainly wouldn't do 1 versus 1 because the space is too big. I might go 2 versus 2 if the games are getting over too quickly. If it's just a case of kick ball on field, they shoot it through, I might reduce the numbers to try to get the game to last a little bit longer. And it may or may not work. But I just wanted to show you that 3 versus 3 can work, does work. The fact of varying where the services go, depending on the ability of the players that are going out to play. Does that make sense? All right, so we had about 6 activities, start to finish. What do we think? All appropriate, not appropriate? Yes, you'd try them. Yes, you have tried them, and you know they work. It's your time now.
I've seen a lot of different variations of sharks and minnows, sharks and Nemos.
Yep.
They all seem very, very appropriate variations. They love it. If you do it right, it's all about the performance.
Yes.
The coach can make it fun.
Yeah, it is about that, isn't it? It's about you being into it with them. Otherwise, they'll lose interest pretty quickly.
For the 3v3, I mean, I try something similar, not exactly that, but I have kids that they just want to do the exercise. They don't want to play really soccer yet at U6. They just stand there, just watching them fight for the ball, and they just stay back. So I don't know if that would work still for them at U6. Any recommendations how I can get them to start playing soccer?
Well, an aspect that we haven't really touched on yet is, you know, well, Jacob did touch on it a little bit yesterday in the way that different types of learning. Some people learn by just watching. You know, a story comes to mind. I was in Indiana doing a coaching clinic, and this one 12-year-old girl, her name was Alyssa, stood out absolutely head and shoulders above everybody else. She was completely into the game. And the grandmother came up to me at the end of the session and she said, you know, when I first came to watch Alyssa play, she said, I stopped going after 3 weeks because she just stood on the field and didn't move. She said, and then a few months later, my daughter called me and said, Mom, you've got to come out and watch Alyssa play. She's really changed and now she's into the game. And what they figured out, what we figured out together was, it took the first few months for her to be looking around going, okay, so I'm in red, they're in white, they're trying to kick the ball that way into that thing, and my team in red are trying to, so she was just figuring the game out on the field. So it wasn't that she wasn't interested, she was just trying to get a grip on what was going on. But as coaches, we have this, they must be active, they must be active, they must be active. And I'm not sure that I fully buy into it. So, you've got to monitor it. If it becomes disinterest, you've got to re-engage them soon.
That's why sometimes I stop some activity because I see 2 or 3 kids not really buying into it. So I'm like, okay, well maybe it's not working for everybody, and I want them to be moving around and want them to be doing something. So that's why I stop at the video.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I'll just make it watch it for a little bit and see if they like it.
Yeah. I'm good with that. Yep.
If you're going to ultimately go to the true 3v3 at the end, but you're also going to incorporate the get out of here with Q6, I mean, wouldn't 1v1 or possibly 2v2 because they're not going to be passing problems. These guys are passing.
Right. Which you won't see this afternoon.
Right, so you're putting all those kids on the field, which is 1v5, so your progression would be me versus you.
Uh-huh.
Now,
But you'd have
you
to
have
make
the right
this,
numbers.
you'd have to make your space smaller for 1 versus 1.
Absolutely.
That's the downside to starting smaller with the numbers. You're going to keep changing the space. And what I tried to do was I tried to have the most efficient cone set up that I could. So essentially, how many cones did we pick up throughout the session? 4. We picked up the corner inside cone of each of the 4 houses, and we were all good to go. So it's set up with efficiency.
Is the length on 1v1 or is it the width or is it the whole thing? Because what if you have the setup, because that's what I really liked about it, is the fact that you introduced the homes early,
Yep.
so when you got to the game, they understood what was going on, there wasn't an explanation needed.
Right.
So
And that was deliberate.
if you kept it, could you just start where the home line is for 1v1 or is it the length still too long? You follow me?
Yeah, I am following you. I think the length is a little bit long, but not. I mean, if you bring these cones up to level with the top of the houses here, I think you're close enough. So it's not completely inefficient. So yeah, I mean, there are ways of working around it, but you know, ideally we want to get them into that, because eventually they're going to play 3 versus 3. So if you just kind of like shove it on them at the end and all they've ever done is 1 ball, 1 player, it's a little bit of a stretch to expect them to be anywhere close where you want them to be in the game.
And most of the kids, they stay in their races, the 1v1. It's like the lines which one we were talking about.
Right.
Whether the active, all the kids. Maybe 2v2 is more close, but the 1v1, another 8 kids, 9 kids.
And it's a very good point. 1 versus 1 will have too much inactivity or you've got too much going on
Especially
around
this
you
age,
to
the 6
monitor.
years old.
Yes.
One last thing, I know we talked about simple to complex within a practice, but would you also maybe go simple to complex throughout the season? So the first time you have them, you may not do homes because that may be...
Yeah, absolutely.
You keep it very simple at
You have,
first.
it's all about gauging where the players are at. And if you've gone over the heads, you have got to bring it back to where you can get on the level again.
It's the ability.
You're absolutely right, yeah. It's their ability, but the level of understanding of what's going on. And if you've gone over the heads, and I can't stress that enough, you've got to bring it back down. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The challenge would increase as the season goes on, for sure. Absolutely. All right, very good. Hopefully that was all right for you, and I certainly appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to split